Hey, what's up, family? In today's video, I will share with you the steps that I took to begin my container gardening on my front porch. That said, let's begin. Hey, what's up? My name is Mia and welcome to my humble abode. My Afro-Bohemian Homestead is a channel dedicated to showing urban dwellers how to use their space to be more sustainable, self-sufficient, and live a simpler life. So if you're looking for a way to add food preservation, gardening, cooking, DIY, and more to your space, you have come to the right place. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you guys my current progress and process of me starting round 2 of my container gardening or my container garden on my front porch. So if you can recall a couple of years back, if you've seen that video, I tried to do container gardening once in my backyard and it was a fail, and I have all the reasons why, and I'm going to share it with you guys. However, after giving myself a little bit more prep talk and taking time out to really settle down and get things going again, I finally did it again, and this time it's turning out pretty good. If there are people out there that have small space, no land, and you want to start your garden, you're going to learn how I did it today, and hopefully you could try it out and tell me how it goes. So, with that being said, let's get into it. So as I mentioned, although my attempt was well-meaning, I now know what I could have done better, and it's really broken down to about 10 things. So let's quickly touch on all 10 of these, starting with location. Now the plants were placed far from the house, and in one sense this would be pretty cool, but in another hand it kind of messed me up because I'm an out of sight, out of mind person. With that being said, since it was far, I didn't pay much attention to it. The second one is lighting. So if you've ever seen any of my past videos, I've talked about this big oak or maple tree in my backyard, which it's beautiful, but it gives filtered light. In result, my plants didn't grow that well. Third is container choice. So as I was choosing my plants, I kind of guesstimated what I needed, and in result, I didn't necessarily put the right plants in the right pots. So it was a test run, and I thought I could freestyle it, but it's a science to container gardening as I'm learning. 4, drainage. So I grossly underestimated the amount of drainage needed when you are container gardening. So needless to say, I created some small pots or small holes, which really didn't do well for my plants, and it actually ended up drowning some of them. 5 is plant choice. There are certain plants that are designed for container gardening, and I didn't know that. So at the time, I just bought regular sized plants, and yeah, you could still do it for certain plants, but I probably would have done a lot better if I focused on container garden friendly plants. 6, the soil choice. So I was using not garden soil, but it wasn't potting soil. It was like a compost mix I got from somebody that had it in their yard, and it was actually a mix of all the nutrients and all that good stuff. So I'm confessing to you guys, I used it because it was free and I wanted to try it out, and it didn't work out the way I thought it did. 7, maintenance. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, out of sight, out of mind, that was my disclaimer. With that being said, I really didn't maintain that garden. I had so much happening in my life at that time that I really underestimated. I just kind of set it up and thought, it'll be all right. But with container gardens, you got to kind of go out there and make sure they're okay. 8, weather. That was the year, I believe, we had crazy weather. One minute it was hot, next minute it was cold, so it just didn't do well with the containers. 9 is me giving up. Maybe it was everything that I was going through at the time, but I decided to sacrifice the garden and just let it grow. With that said, it didn't grow. It didn't do good because I just left it totally alone. And finally, I figured out I bit off more than I can chew. At the time, I was trying to do so many different projects. I had to really reevaluate my why. Now that we got those 10 lessons learned out the way, let's focus on what we're doing different today. So one of the first things I focused on was washing and disinfecting the old containers. According to the University of Iowa Extension, because old used pots can contain disease-causing fungi and other organisms and insects, it can affect the new plants. So it's important to clean and disinfect old pots every time you use them. And although there are many methods to do so, I decided to just use a plastic bottle with some warm water, soap, and a cap or so of bleach. Using the bottle made it a lot easier because I could just shake it all together and pour it as needed. This was also pretty easy to do because, as I mentioned before, I was terrible with drainage on my first go around. So as you can imagine, some of the holes were pretty small. And also with the pots being on the grass, I knew the mixture with the water would be okay. Let me also add that it helped to, before you put the mixture in, to use a high-powered hose to clean out as much dirt and debris as possible. Once you do that, then you can slowly add the mixture with the water and fill up the bucket or the container as much as possible. Afterwards, I let it soak for about 10 minutes and then I constantly rinsed it out, did pretty much a rinse and repeat. After I rinsed it out at least about 3 or 4 times, I pretty much let it sit and air dry for about 30 minutes, and then I moved it to the porch for the next steps. Next, I had to open up the drainage holes. Last time, one of the issues that I ran into was drainage. I previously made them too small, causing the vegetables to drown. This year, I'm making the holes with a larger drill bit and I'm drilling a few extra holes on the side. Now that the pots are ready, it is now time to prep the soil for the plants. Prepping the soil is pretty straightforward. However, for my largest pot, I wanted to create a way for the soil to not come out of the holes since in this pot they were larger. So, an idea that I had was trying to block the drainage holes with some of the landscaping rocks that we have under the porch. Blocking it like this creates a flow where only water comes out and not the dirt. And for good measure, since I had some pebbles left, I added those to the bottom as well. This will help keep the larger rocks in place while also making the bottom easier to drain. Plus, I finally got to find a use for the rocks that's been sitting under my porch for years. Now it is time for the soil. This year, I'm using Miracle-Gro potting soil as the base. I like the soil because it comes pre-packed with peat moss, coir, perlite, and fertilizer. And I think as the second go around, it's a good base. However, I do plan on trying other brands in the future. Okay, so let's talk about it. You heard me mention that the soil comes pre-packed with stuff. However, you will notice that for a couple of things, I added some additional amounts myself. For one, the perlite. I wanted to make sure that the soil was loose enough and it can hold the amount of moisture that it needs to grow. Hence, why I added additional perlite to each pot. Now, please note, when you are dealing with perlite, make sure that you wear a mask because it can get dusty, and if you have bad allergies like me, it will have you sneezing and coughing in every which direction. Once you get done adding that mix, now it is time for the plants. You guys, I am so proud of myself because this go around I found container friendly plants. These type of plants are beneficial if you're dealing with certain plants like an eggplant or a cucumber that will grow wild if you get the regular plant. I would say out of all the plants I purchased, at least half of them are container friendly, so I'm really excited to see how they turn out. One more thing to note is that this go around, I took time out to figure out which plant goes in the correct pot. So you'll see that I switched around my cucumber with my eggplant because my cucumber would vine up and my eggplant is like an eggplant bush. So we're going to see how that goes. Now it is time to put these babies in the soil. Now before we put the plants in, the second addition is vegetable fertilizer. I like to use Dr. Earth's organic and natural fertilizer for the initial planting. Then I will use something else in the future. And although Miracle Grow came with some, I still wanted to use it because it really just focused on vegetables versus the Miracle Grow really focused on just your plants in general. Following the recommended amount, I added some to the hole, then I put the plant in. I did this so the fertilizer can directly hit the roots instead of mixing it into the soil where it spreads out to locations where the plant is not even touching. After the plant was added, I went ahead and added some more soil just to secure the plant and make sure that it's not flopping over unnecessarily, and it also has the additional support it needs. Ooh, another tip. Before you put the plant in a container, make sure that you clip the leaves at the bottom of the plant. It will help the plants take root and for the energy to go to the top of the plant instead of focusing on the bottom leaves that is closer to the soil. And depending on the plant, I didn't necessarily rip the roots apart at the bottom, but I did kind of gently squeeze the bottom depending on the plant to make sure that the roots kind of loosened up, but I was trying not to be too rough with them. And finally, once again, repurposing a bunch of stuff that I had around the house and from my previous adventures. Since some of the plants climbed, I installed some trellises and poles in the pots to help stabilize them as they grew. And to also help my forgetfulness, I went ahead and took the liberty to also add some tags to every plant so I can kind of remember what each plant is. Once everything was done, I went ahead and gave each plant a good swig of H2O and let it grow, because the following days we end up having like 2 days of rain. So I did it just in case, but here we are. Well, there you have it. I still have a few more plants to go, but this was a great start to my second round of container gardening on my front porch. Hopefully it helped you and you learned something new. I will be posting updates as we progress. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have not already, go ahead and join by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell. That said, thank you for watching, and until next time, stay supertastic. Peace.